I have this wonderful video for you today, vegan cauliflower steak. Got a lot of inspiration from Gordon Ramsay's cauliflower steak video. I'm using a lot of his same cooking techniques to make the cauliflower steak. However, I did change up a lot of the ingredients to give it my own little zest and flavor, and I think these ingredients work very well. I hope this video gets straight to the point and shows you the cooking techniques and ingredients used to make this cauliflower steak. This cauliflower steak is sure to impress your vegan and your non-vegan friends, so I hope you guys get the chance to make this in your kitchen. So with all that being said, here's the cauliflower steak video. The first step to this recipe is finding a good looking cauliflower. Live, vibrant, and easily cut into 2 even pieces. I want to cut the 2 sides of the cauliflower off and leave the center with a nice piece that I can cut evenly. You want to make sure that you wet your knife in between each slice to prevent the cauliflower from crumbling when you cut it. Once I have the cauliflower in that shape, I'm going to go ahead and slice evenly right down the center. The more even you cut the cauliflower, more evenly the cauliflower will cook. Now is a good time to preheat the oven. I'm preheating the oven to 350 degrees, and I plan on leaving the cauliflower in the oven for about 6 to 8 minutes. Next, I'm going to grab a baking pan. 3 to 4 tablespoons of avocado oil on the baking pan, and I'm going to add a hearty portion of lemon pepper zest on top of it. I'm going to take both sides of the cauliflower steak that I've previously cut and rub it thoroughly into the baking pan. Now I want to make sure I get as much oil and seasoning on the cauliflower as possible. Once I get done with one side of the cauliflower, I'm going to go ahead and take the other half and do the same thing, making sure I get all the avocado oil and lemon pepper seasoning on the cauliflower. After the cauliflower has been rubbed, I'm going to go ahead and start the burner up. I'm using a cast iron pan, and I'm going to make sure my pan is sizzling hot before I start to place the cauliflower on top. Once the pan is hot, I'm going to go ahead and place each side of the cauliflower onto the pan. Char the cauliflower for about 90 seconds on each side. I'm going to check on the cauliflower to make sure that I am not burning the cauliflower. Once I make sure the cauliflower has been adequately cooked on one side, I'm going to go ahead and flip it over and char the other side. You want to make sure that the cauliflower has been blackened or charred on both sides. This adds to the presentation and adds a lot of flavor to the cauliflower steaks. Once the cauliflower has been charred on both sides, you want to add in your vegan butter. I'm adding about 2 tablespoons of butter into the pan. After the butter has been added to the pan, we're going to let the butter burn down, and then we're going to baste the cauliflower. When basting the cauliflower, you want to make sure that you get as much of the butter into the cauliflower as possible. This is going to give your cauliflower a full flavor with the butter seeping into all parts of the cauliflower. After the cauliflower has been basted, we're going to add the vegetable stock to the pan. I'm adding in a half cup of vegetable stock, and I'm going to bring the vegetable stock to a boil before I place it in the oven. Now your oven should be hot by now. We're going to place the cast iron pan in the middle rack of the oven, and we're going to leave the cauliflower inside for about 6 to 8 minutes. After you place your cauliflower steak inside the oven, we want to start to prep the ingredients for the topping of the cauliflower steak. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to gather a yellow onion, and I'm going to begin slicing it. I want to slice the yellow onion into thick slices. That way when I saute them, they will burn down but still have a nice, thick, juicy flavor. For this recipe, I'm using a CREMINI mushroom or a common mushroom, just because this is what I found at my local market. After we cut the mushroom and onion into thick, hearty pieces, we're going to do the same thing with the garlic. I'm going to start first with a little bit of avocado oil, and then I'm going to add in the mushrooms. Once the mushrooms have been added in, I want to saute them for about 5 minutes. I want to make sure the mushrooms have a nice texture on them and that they are changing color. This is going to bring out the flavor of the mushrooms. Once the mushrooms have been sauteed, I'm going to go ahead and add in my other ingredients. I'm going to start first with the onion. Once I add in the onion, I'm going to go ahead and saute those as well with the mushrooms. After the onions have changed a little bit of color, I'm going to go ahead and add in butter. I'm adding in a Miyoko's vegan butter to this recipe. However, you can use any vegan butter that you can find at your local grocery store. After the butter has been added, I'm going to add in my garlic slices. Once I have the garlic slices and butter simmering away in the pan, continue to cook them down for a little bit. I'm going to add a pinch of salt. I'm adding in fresh rosemary. It's going to add a lot of flavor to this dish. After you add the salt and rosemary, you're going to want to add some lemon zest. I'm taking a lemon and a microplane, and I'm going to grate the lemon on the microplane to add in a little bit of lemon zest. After I add in the lemon zest, I'm going to start to plate the cauliflower. When plating the cauliflower, you want to firmly grab the cauliflower to make sure that pieces do not fall off. Face the cauliflower with the stems pointing to each other. Then I'm going to go ahead and top them with the ingredients we have just prepped. Carefully add the toppings you just sauteed on the top of the cauliflower. Next, I'm going to add in a garnish of broccoli flowers on top. You can use any sort of flower or garnish. Green onions, cilantro, all work very well. However, I used a broccoli flower. This broccoli flower was picked from my garden backyard, and I have an abundance of those growing from my broccoli. After I've plated the cauliflower, added in the flowers, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of lemon zest on top. I've added a little bit more flavor to the plate by adding a couple more broccoli flowers and a little bit of rosemary on each side. And then the last thing I'm going to do is top the cauliflower with a little bit of truffle oil. Truffle oil adds a lot of flavor to this dish, and it's that last pick-me-up to really bring this dish to a whole new level. After you've added in the truffle oil, that's it. You've cooked a beautiful, gorgeous, magnificent cauliflower steak that's sure to impress all your friends, vegan or not.